Hello to all our esteemed viewers. I am so excited you are here. It is always an honor to spend time with you. My heartfelt gratitude to each one of you. For our new viewers, a very warm welcome to our channel's community. I also want to take a moment and acknowledge you for taking time to listen to something that could truly help you live a better life. Let's dive into it, shall we? What is a dating red flag? A red flag is a warning sign, a blinking red light that appears during a date or interaction with a potential romantic interest that could indicate a future problem, a miscommunication, a challenge, or something that could end up becoming catastrophic. These red flags, if you're able to identify them early on in a relationship, you can literally save yourself, both from a heartbreak as well as from literally saving your life. These red flags, they reveal themselves in multiple ways: physical, verbal, and also sometimes in non communication styles. How important it is for you to recognize and address these red flags depends upon your style and for what you're looking for in a relationship. Many red flags are very subtle signs. These are sometimes that you need to be very, very observant about. And it is important to take note before a relationship goes too far. Many experts in psychology and many dating coaches recommend that one should be very careful about understanding what these red flags are and how to be able to identify them early on in your relationship before you take that decision to jump into the deep end of the pool. Due to the long list of red flags, I have split this topic into multiple parts. This is part 3 of the series of videos on this topic of red flags in relationships. If you have not watched our previous videos about this series, don't worry, I will add a link to the playlist at the end of this video. All red flags mentioned in this video, it applies to both men and women. Number 1, overly controlling behavior. Imagine a partner who insists on picking out every outfit you wear every morning. At first, it might seem charming. Oh, look how much they care about me, how I look. But when their fashion advice starts veering into dictatorial territory, it's time to consider the deeper implications. Over controlling behavior often masks insecurities or a need for dominance and control, and before you know it, you are not just choosing between sweaters or tops or shirts, but debating whether you're allowed to attend your best friend's birthday party without them. A healthy relationship is like a potluck dinner. Everyone brings their own flavor to the table, and no one is micromanaging the spice levels in your dish. Conversely, a controlling relationship is like being handed a pre approved menu where all your choices are made for you. Only tofu, no salsa, and definitely no desserts. It's not just about the clothes or the dinner plans. It's about the space to be yourself without someone else rewriting your script and how you should live your life. So, the next time someone tries to dictate your decisions, whether it's your hairstyle or the volume level of your laugh, take a step back. Do you really want to be cast as a supporting actor in a show which is all about them? Probably not. And while compromise is a sign of maturity, having your individual identity squashed under the weight of their preferences, what they like and what they don't like, is exactly the opposite of a healthy relationship. Remember, the goal isn't to find someone who thinks your socks match like their worldview, but someone who loves your sock selection for its quirky, mismatched brilliance. Red flag number 2, the lack of respect or trust. Trust, they say, is the glue that binds relationships together. But what happens when that glue becomes brittle and is unable to hold the pieces in a place? The absence of respect or trust in any bond, whether it is romantic, platonic, friendship, professional, any relationship, it's like a crack in a dam. At first, it might seem insignificant, but over time, it widens, spilling chaos into the once serene waters of connection. Imagine confiding in a friend about a deeply personal challenge only to overhear your story being shared at a party wrapped in whispers, laughters, and giggles. That betrayal isn't just a breach of trust, it is dismantling of the invisible contract that holds friendships together. Or picture a romantic partner who promises, like autumn leaves, are beautiful yet fragile, crumbling with the slightest touch of reality. These subtle yet piercing moments remind us that trust isn't given, it is earned. Healthy relationships they thrive on mutual respect, much like a well-tended garden thrives on sunlight and water. But what happens when respect is stripped away? Take, for instance, a colleague who consistently dismisses your ideas in meetings, claiming their own brilliance shines brighter. Over time, that disregard erodes not just your confidence, but the collaborative spirit vital to teamwork. Respect isn't about grand gestures. It's often found in the simple act of listening, acknowledging, and valuing each other's perspective. The interplay between trust and respect can be as delicate as a tightrope act. It's not uncommon to hear someone declare, I trust them, but I don't respect them for how they handle things. Yet, without respect, trust has no foundation. Consider the parent who says they trust their child to make good decisions but is constantly micromanaging every choice they make, from friendships to hobbies to their career choices. That lack of respect for autonomy eventually undermines trust, sowing seeds of rebellion or resentment. In the end, relationship that lacks trust or respect is not just strained, they become hollow echoes of what it could have been. They are the friendships where laughter turns into tension, the partnerships where shared dreams become solitary burdens, and the connections where once open heart now beat in guarded silence. Like a bridge whose supports falter, such relationships eventually collapse under the weight of disillusionment. So, if you find yourself doubting whether trust or respect still exists in your relationships, ask this: are you building bridges or walls? Realign your foundation, be it through candid conversations, mutual accountability, or by simply showing up when it matters most. Because without the pillars of trust and respect, even the strongest connection is destined to falter and fail. Red flag number three: lack of emotional support. Without having emotional support in a relationship, it can be similar to a tree trying to grow in barren soil. The roots search desperately for nourishment, but instead they find only neglect and indifference. Imagine a friend who, when you call to share a moment of triumph or despair, responds with a distracted, oh, okay, or changes the subject entirely. Over time, these responses cultivate a sense of isolation as though your emotions are an unwelcome guest in the party. Relationships of any kind, they thrive when they are nurtured with empathy and understanding. When emotional support is absent, it's not just the bond that suffers, it's the individuals within it. Without the reassurances that and someone genuinely cares, things begin to crack in that relationship. Doubts begin to creep in, and you start asking questions like, am I not worthy of their time? Am I not worthy of their attention or their kindness? The absence of emotional support is not only loud or dramatic, often it is in the quiet disregard for another's feelings, the lack of a listening ear, the failure to simply be present. And while it may not leave visible scars, the damage it inflicts can run deep, altering the way we see ourselves and the world around us. To repair such a rift requires courage, both to confront the issue and to demand respect and care we deserve. Red flag number four: abuse. There are multiple categories of abuse, and I'm just listing a few of them here. physical, mental, verbal, emotional, sexual, or financial. Abuse often leaves an imprint far deeper than the surface, invisible to the untrained eye, but acutely felt by those who endure it. The scars of physical abuse may fade away, yet the psychological toll of emotional, mental abuse often persists, reshaping the very fabric of one's identity and the sense of self worth. What makes emotional abuse insidious is its capability to nest within everyday interactions, disguised as a insult, a cutting remark, an unfounded accusation, a deliberate manipulation of feelings, and sometimes in ways of bullying. Consider Ella, who lived under the shadow of a partner's insecurity. Every compliment she received from friends at a party was twisted into accusations of disloyalty. Every success she receives was always followed by diminished insignificance. Over time, the constant erosion of her confidence left her doubting her abilities, questioning her place in the world. This mental toll mirrors the effects of emotional abuse, crafting an environment where self esteem is systematically dismantled and systematically killed. Mental abuse, often entangled with verbal and emotional abuse, can manifest as gaslighting, a tactic where the victim is made to doubt their perception of reality, causing disorientation and distress. It's a cruel weapon wielded with the intent of control and dominance. Abuse strips individuals of their agency and sense of security, leaving them grappling with unresolved traumas, PTSD, which is commonly known as post traumatic stress disorder. Prolonged abuse amplifies all of these cycles, manifesting in flashbacks, hypervigilance, and a paralyzing fear of situations that echo the past experiences. Healing from such relationships requires immense courage. You need to go for intense therapy. Especially as survivors, they confront the emotional debris that are shattered and left behind. To recognize and counter abuse is to reclaim the narrative of fairness and respect in relationships. Abuse is never acceptable, even under the guise of frustration, stress, or unresolved personal issues. It demands constructive confrontation and equitable dialogue. Those subjected to such toxic dynamics should seek support from networks, from professionals, and to navigate the path toward recovery. Regain your strength to stand firm against further harm and to save yourself from such relationships. The power to dismantle the cycle of abuse rests not only with the survivors, but also with the extended family, friends, society at large, which must emphasize empathy, accountability, and intervention. Only then can the pervasive shadow of such abuse, physical, mental, verbal, financial, emotional, sexual, etc., can be confronted and eradicated from our societies. Red flag number 5: substance abuse, addictions. Substance abuse addictions are often referred to as a silent thief. It erodes trust, respect, stability from relationships. It doesn't just affect the individual struggling with addiction, but also ripples towards impacting family, children, partners, friends, parents, siblings who find themselves trapped in this orbit. Take Mia, who watched helplessly as a partner spiraled into drugs and alcoholism. What began as a harmless smoke or social drinking soon mutated into nightly escapades fueled by spirits that seemed to drown not only his pain but also their shared dreams. The promises to quit were fleeting, and over time, trust unraveled. Mia found herself walking on eggshells, fearing the next outburst or abuse or financial strain brought on by his addiction, which will generally then be followed with abuse. Substance abuse doesn't discriminate, it dismantles the fabric of relationships, leaving emotional wreckage behind. Yet, recognizing substance abuse as an illness presents a critical perspective. Addiction often masks deeper pain, unresolved trauma, or a struggle with mental health underlying issues. Recovery may at times need rehabilitation. Substance abuse needs support, and also it takes a long time to heal for the individual. They need to confront their demons head on, while the loved ones, they require resilience to sometimes build trust and safety. Many addicts are not able to rehabilitate from these habits. Abuse and addiction, they sometimes go hand in hand. Abusers generally will have addictions, but not all addicts are abusers. Addressing substance and financial abuses, it demands societal awareness alongside individual courage. Advocacy for transparent dialogue, education, support systems play a crucial role in dismantling these toxic patterns. By fostering environments steeped in empathy and accountability, both survivors and perpetrators can begin to build a journey towards healing and mutual respect and trust. It is very difficult. If you see abuse and or addiction in your relationships, be very cautious about it. It may not end up well for you. Red flag number 6. This one is a very complicated subject, but I'm going to just briefly touch point about it. The narcissist. Few traits that disrupt relationships inside out with as much silent ferocity is narcissistic behavior. Consider Sophia, whose partner, Danielle, never missed an opportunity to remind her of his accomplishments. At first, his confidence felt magnetic, a gravitational pull that made her believe she had found someone truly exceptional. But as time wore on, that self assuredness morphed into a suffocating cloud. Conversations revolved around Danielle's latest achievements or grievances, while her own stories and struggles evaporated into thin air. If she dared to voice her needs, the response was dismissive, defensive, or sometimes abusive, as though her desires threatened the carefully curated world he had built around his ego. Narcissists like Daniel, they are adept at cloaking their self-absorption into charm, often leaving their partners questioning their reality. Sophia found herself apologizing for things she hadn't even done wrong and doubting her own self worth in the face of Daniel's relentless need for validation. Over time, what started as admiration turned into resentment as she realized the emotional toll of always being cast in the supporting role of his life's narrative. It was me, and myself. Narcissistic behavior isn't just confined to romantic relationships. Even in professional settings, it can manifest in ways that can drain energy and morale. The workplace becomes a stage for endless performance for such narcissistic bosses or coworkers, where genuine collaboration gets overshadowed by their insatiable hunger for acclaim and self centeredness. Addressing narcissistic behavior requires more than just recognizing its patterns. It demands boundaries, resilience, and often external support. And remember, personality disorders such as narcissistic personality disorder, it has no cure. It can only be managed to a certain extent with intense therapy. So being in a relationship with narcissistic is definitely going to end up becoming very difficult in the long run. While the narcissist believes the world revolves around them, breaking free from it involves recentering oneself and reclaiming the narratives that they overshadowed. So, narcissism is another characteristic trait that is generally found right now. I believe the statistics are 1 out of 4 individuals have narcissistic traits. And remember, narcissism is a spectrum range. So, they have different ranges of narcissistic traits in their characteristics. But narcissists generally are very difficult people to be around, whether it is in personal relationships or in professional relationships. And especially if you have a narcissistic parent, it has deep scarring issues on a child's life, future, and also on their mental health. Red flag number 7, anger issues. Anger issues, often underestimated, have a profound ability to fracture relationships, and it erodes trust and respect, and will generally have abuse involved in such situations. Anger management issues often appear in all kinds of settings, whether it is in romantic relationships, professional settings, or in personal relationships. It can drain your mind and energy just to be around such individuals. It can cause anxiety issues in you when you are having to deal with people who do not have control over their anger. They are drama creators. They will say things that they shouldn't say. They will storm out. They will sometimes even throw things in reactions, and abuse is also one of the things that they end up doing in personal relationships. Temper is not just a personal flaw, but a pattern that poisons any environment, whether it is workplace, family, or personal environments. It silences creativity, and it stifles collaboration, and it stifles healthy relationships. Navigating the mood swings of somebody who has anger issues, it becomes a daily ordeal one has to deal with. One that drains energy, and it will leave you feel undervalued. Addressing anger issues is not merely about just pacifying the person in question. It requires recognizing the patterns, setting firm boundaries, and fostering a culture of accountability. And such individuals, they have a cyclical cycles where they will apologize for their behavior, but they do not do anything to improve their behavior. Be aware of such individuals, and those impacted, they must prioritize your own safety and well-being first. Ensure that you do not allow somebody with this kind of issues to harm you or your loved ones and intimidate you in any way. It is a courageous act to actually confront a toxic angry person and reclaim spaces that could foster trust, not fear. Red flag number 8, codependency. Consider the story of Mia and Ethan, whose relationship seemed perfect from the outside. They were inseparable, finishing each other's sentences and always leaning on each other for support. Yet, beneath the veneer of harmony lay a troubling imbalance. Mia found herself constantly prioritizing Ethan's needs over her own, rearranging her schedule to accommodate his whims and suppressing her own desires to avoid upsetting him. Ethan, in turn, grew increasingly dependent on Mia for emotional needs, expecting her to smoothen every conflict he had and carry the weight of their shared decisions. She began to notice how her friendships had dwindled, her hobbies had fallen by the sideways, and her sense of self-identity blurred into and emerged into the identity of becoming just Ethan's partner. Though her initial sacrifices were just acts of love, the emotional toll eventually became evident. She felt drained, as if her own growth was stunted by the relentless demands and needs of her husband. Codependency often masquerades as devotion but can quietly erode individuality and create a cycle where neither person truly learns how to stand on their own. In this case, Mia and Ethan, they both had a relationship that became a microcosm of emotional interdependence, where both feared addressing the imbalances lest it jeopardize the connection they held dear. Breaking free from codependency isn't easy, but it begins with self-awareness and willingness to set boundaries. Eventually, you have to seek therapy, learn to reclaim your own senses, self identity, and nurture relationships outside of that bond. It is a challenging journey, but it becomes a testament to the importance of maintaining your own individuality, even within the closest of relationships. Red flag number 9, constant jealousy. Jealousy in relationships can often be likened to a shadow that grows larger with time, obscuring trust and genuine affection. Take, for instance, the story of Nathan and Clara. Nathan was deeply in love with Clara, but his jealousy began to seep into their relationship like water through cracked ceiling. Whenever Clara spent time with her friends or shared a laugh with a colleague, Nathan couldn't help but feel the pang of insecurity. What began as small, seemingly innocent questions, who are you with? Or why did you have to reply to them so soon? Or why were you laughing with him? It soon escalated into accusations masked as concern. Clara, initially empathetic, tried to reassure Nathan, explaining her actions and even cutting back on social outings to soothe his unease. However, the more she adjusted, the more Nathan's jealousy demanded. It was as though no amount of reassurance could fill the void of insecurities in his mind. Such partners, they will slowly start eroding you of your sense of individuality and freedom. In healthier scenarios, jealousy can act as a mirror, reflecting insecurities that an individual needs to address within themselves. But unchecked, out of control jealousy becomes a cage. It restricts your freedom and your autonomy. You begin to realize that your partner's jealousy was less about love and more about control and their insecurities and their low self esteem issues. The turning point comes when you talk to somebody who is able to point out to you that the once vibrant personality you had has diminished because of this relationship that you are being caged into. You have to start confronting the root of the jealousy. Seek therapy, couples counseling is a good one to go to, and start addressing these insecurities in relationships. Focus on rebuilding your connections with your friends, with your colleagues, and with your own family, and make sure you are able to balance your individuality and the partnership you have in the relationship. Journey with jealous partners is, if it is not addressed, will only damage your other relationships but will also stifle your freedom, personal growth, professionally and personally. It takes a lot of courage, self awareness, and mutual effort to break free of such grips, paving the way for a healthier, more respectful dynamic. Red flag number 10, gaslighting. It's a term derived from the 1944 film Gaslight, which is a psychological manipulation so subtle yet so destructive that its victims often find themselves doubting their own perceptions and memories. Take, for instance, the story of Elena and Marco. Elena was a confident, vibrant individual who prided herself on her ability to stand firm on her beliefs. But as her relationship with Marco deepened, cracks began to form, not only in her confidence, but also in the foundation of her reality. Marco, under the guise of concern, would challenge Elena's recollection of events. Are you sure that happened? He would ask with a disarming smile, or, I think you're just overreacting. Maybe you're just so stressed lately. At first, Elena dismissed these remarks as benign misunderstandings. However, they grew more frequent, insidious, and tailored to chip away her own self assurance and her own self of understanding of her reality. One pivotal moment occurred when Elena confronted Marco about a plan they had agreed upon, a weekend getaway to the mountains. Marco outright denied that they had ever discussed it. You are imagining things, he said. When Elena showed him her text messages confirming the plan, Marco claimed that she had misunderstood what he meant in those texts. This pattern of constant denial and deflection, it left Elena entangled in a web of self-doubt. She began questioning her decisions, her own memory, and her own sanity. Gaslighting is dangerous. As seen in Elena's story, it's not just a tactic to evade accountability, it's a calculated, manipulative method to control and dominate by eroding the victim's confidence in their own judgment and realizations. It often leaves its victims isolated, guilt-ridden, and emotionally dependent on the manipulator. It's a toxic structure that demands recognition and intervention to dismantle. Moving from gaslighting to the realm of emotional intelligence, a lack thereof can similarly destabilize relationships, but in a less overtly malicious ways. Emotional intelligence, often described as the ability to navigate interpersonal dynamics with empathy and self awareness, is a critical pillar for healthy relationships. Its absence can manifest in ways that are both frustrating and deeply hurt. While we're talking about emotional intelligence, that is our number 11 red flag. The lack of emotional intelligence, it manifests in subtle but deep, wounding ways, creating cracks in relationships that grow wider over time. The consequence of low emotional intelligence are not limited to romantic relationships. Even in workplace settings, a colleague or supervisor who lacks this crucial skill can foster an environment of miscommunication, mistrust, and chaos. Interestingly, the role of emotional intelligence, it extends beyond interpersonal dynamics and self-awareness. A lack of emotional intelligence often correlates with difficulty in understanding one's own emotions, leading to impulsive decisions, to impulsive, unchecked frustrations, reactions, anger, or it might also result in, impulsive acts that could be harmful. For instance, an individual who feels persistently irritable may lash out at their loved ones without identifying or addressing the root cause of their discontent, be it at work, stress related, unresolved trauma, or simply the need for rest. The ripple effects of emotional intelligence lacking, it has perpetuated into emotional abuse in families and relationships. Especially we see a lot of this in parents who lack emotional intelligence. At the outset, such individuals will overwhelm their relationships with grand gestures and sometimes over overtly affection bouts, and then they will start becoming more manipulative with their intentions, and they will try to control and make you dependent on them. For the recipient, the shift from adoration to domination, it can be disorienting, leaving you doubting your own self-worth. To cultivate emotional intelligence is to invest in the art of connection, learning to recognize not only the feelings of others but also the unspoken narratives that shape their emotional realities. By prioritizing emotional intelligence, individuals can transform relationships from transactional exchanges into nuanced partnerships that honor vulnerability and foster mutual growth. Whether through active listening, empathy, introspection, ability to control your emotions, a journey towards emotional intelligence is one of the most rewarding investments one can make, not just for others but also for oneself. Very closely tied to this red flag is our next red flag, which is lack of emotional stability. Emotional stability, it serves as the cornerstone of all relationships, all healthy relationships, guiding individuals through their lives' inevitable ups and downs with resilience, grace, and dignity. When emotional stability is lacking, it can act like a ticking time bomb. It threatens the mere foundation of every relationship: trust, communication, respect, and love. Emotional instability doesn't only affect relationships with others, it also takes a toll on your own self health, especially your mental health. Individuals who do not have the capacity to control their emotions, to digest their emotions, and to understand how to unleash their emotions in productive and in ways which are not harming anybody else. Anger is such an example of an emotion. It is okay to feel angry, but what is not okay is to react to that anger by harming somebody else, whether it is through words, actions, deeds, or abuse. Take Sarah, for example, a university student who found herself overwhelmed by the pressure of academic work. One week, she would be bubbling with optimism, signing up for extracurricular activities, making elaborate plans for her future. And the next week, she would be in total despair, questioning her abilities, withdrawing from her commitments. This roller coaster of emotions left her feeling trapped, unable to make consistent progress in her own professional, academic, and personal life. Emotional instability often stems from unresolved childhood traumas or the environment that you grow up with, or you could be suffering from certain personality disorder traits. Inability to process and regulate emotions effectively means you may be having some underlying mental health issues. The consequences of emotional instability, can ripple into all aspects of your life: professional, social, personal, and any other settings. Someone who lacks emotional stability may struggle to be able to perform as an individual, as an effective individual in society. They have decreased morale, and their productivity lacks stability. Such individuals, you will notice, they do not have stable jobs, or they are not able to accomplish much in their life. They will have generally they will have no to very few relationships that are stable in their lives, and they will not be able to sustain any kind of stability in any aspect of their life. Cultivating emotional stability is not an impossible task, but it requires a lot of conscious effort. You have to first understand and identify that you have such emotional instability, and that you are emotionally triggered, and you're not able to handle your emotions in productive ways, and you're very volatile in nature. Practices such as yoga, mindfulness, journaling, therapy definitely is helpful to help these individuals who can navigate through these emotions in more effective ways. Foster open and honest communication with some of your loved ones. Try to build relationships and try to be very aware of how your emotions trigger you, and address the underlying issues that trigger you. Cultivate the ability to respond to life's challenges with a balanced perspective. Allow for both emotional expression and thoughtful reflection. By striving for emotional stability, individuals can build stronger, more fulfilling relationships, careers, and create a foundation for personal, professional resilience and growth. Red flag number 13: the lack of desire to communicate openly. The ability to communicate openly, it serves as one of the cornerstones, foundations for any thriving relationship. Imagine a scenario where silence replaces dialogue and assumptions often become the currency of interaction. Take, for example, Emily and Jason. Emily often kept her worries to herself, fearing that voicing them out would lead to a conflict with Jason. On the other hand, Jason struggled to articulate his emotions, believing vulnerability is a weakness. Their inability to communicate openly turned minor misunderstandings into towering arguments, leaving both of them feeling isolated despite their closeness. The lack of open communication doesn't just affect romantic relationships, it spills over into every relationship dynamics. Misunderstandings can become frustrations. Frustrations can become larger issues, and those larger issues can become the end of your relationship. In such situations, you should try to have a clear dialogue, create some barriers, and try to build connection and growth. The art of communication can be learned and nurtured. It begins with acknowledging the blocks, whether they stem from fear, past experiences, lack of trust, or simply the lack of practice, and actively working to overcome such issues. Techniques such as active listening, expressing oneself through I statements, and even practicing conversations in low pressure environments can pave the way for more meaningful exchanges. In relationships, patience and mutual encouragement to grow as communicators can transform walls of silence into bridges of understanding. Red flag number 14: the lack of social connections or friendships. This can manifest in subtle yet telling ways. Imagine Sarah, a dedicated professional who spends her evenings immersed in work yet navigates her weekends in a quiet solitude. While her colleagues appreciate her skills, they notice her hesitance to join casual outings or to share details about her personal life beyond the office. She tells herself she's simply too busy, but deep down, Sarah feels a void, a longing for connection she doesn't know how to fill. Sometimes the absence of social connections and ties it stems from past experiences. Take the example of James, who once trusted a close knit group of people only to face betrayal from them, not once, not twice, but again and again. A sting of disloyalty left him so affected and impacted that he retreated into a shelf of self preservation. His reluctance to engage in new relationships isn't due to disinterest but a protective reflex against potential hurt. And yet, this isolation then it becomes a self fulfilling cycle. The longer he remains detached, the harder it becomes to step out and reconnect. The impact of sparse social network isn't confined to the individual, it also influences your relationships. A partner who lacks meaningful friendships might lean heavily on their significant other for emotional support, inadvertently creating an imbalance. Without a broader support system, relationships begin to buckle under the weight of unmet social needs. Yet there's hope for those who find themselves in this space. Building connections is a journey, not a sprint. Start small, a shared smile during a yoga class, a casual conversation at a coffee shop, or revisiting hobbies that bring joy. The act of reaching out, no matter how minor, creates ripples. Life's most rewarding relationships, they always begin with a small gesture, a hello, a shared laugh, or a willingness to be vulnerable. And in the nurturing of these connections, we not only enrich our lives but also gain the courage to be seen and truly understood. You will notice that many narcissistic personalities, abusers, addicts, and some of the traits that we talked about earlier, they do face this kind of a situation where they are socially isolated and they do not have any strong relationships in their lives. They will constantly play victim cards of how they were betrayed by all their relationships, whether it is from their closest of family members, their ex-partners, or whether their social friendships or professional relationships. Such individuals, you need to reflect upon yourself as to why you are in the situation and why you are constantly feeling that you were betrayed by others. Maybe it is the other way around. Maybe it is you who need to fix and address some of your behavioral traits and some of your patterns of relationship building that might have been the result of where your relationships ended up being. Food for thought. Red flag number 15, love bombing. Love bombing is a phenomenon that often catches people by surprise. It is generally cloaked in the allure of romance and attention. It starts with an overwhelming surge of affection, grand gestures, and declarations of till death do us apart, of devotion, and it seems too good to be true. Because often they are too good to be true. In many relationships, he will send you text messages every morning, surprise you with bouquets delivered to your workplace, candlelit dinners prepared with meticulous care, and it was all a whirlwind romance that will leave you feeling special, adored, chosen, and you will feel, oh, he's so perfect, or you will feel, oh, she's so perfect. Yet, as weeks turn into months, the intensity begins to morph into a suffocating grip. Such scenarios will generally turn into manipulative wares, where they seem to try to take control of your life under this garb of love bombing. The hallmark of love bombing it lies in its deceptive nature. Initially, though it feels like devotion and often reveals underlying manipulation. The excessive attention isn't an expression of love but a strategy to establish control and to understand everything and every aspect about your life. Once a target is emotionally invested, the dynamic shifts. The bombastic affectionate wanes, it's replaced with unreasonable expectations, criticism, emotional withdrawal, control, making you do what you don't want to do, and it generally will make you less free in your life. You will notice such individuals will slowly cut away your other relationships from your life, whether it is your friendships, your close relationships with your parents, other siblings. Such individuals will isolate you from all other people. Breaking free from the grip of love bombing, it requires a lot of introspection and courage, and sometimes it is a dangerous situation. So you have to be really tactical in understanding how to get out of such relationships. Building boundaries is the first step. Make sure you get back in constant communication with your near and dear ones. Let them know what situation you are going through. Create a safety option for yourself. Seek help. Such manipulative people are dangerous. You will have to be very careful if you're walking away from such individuals. Love is something that should genuinely grow slowly and steadily and mutually, and it should not be under pressure or demands. It should allow the room for both individuals to nurture trust over time. As the old saying goes, easy come, easy go. Beware of relationships that feel like an inferno of passion. They often only leave behind ashes of pain and suffering. This brings us to the end of part 3 of our series about red flags in relationships. Stay tuned for our next video. Until then, bidding you all by wishing you the best of health and wellness in every aspect of your life. Take care, goodbye, and thank you.